Have you ever wondered about the world a long, long time ago? Imagine a time so far back that there were no cities with tall buildings, no cars on busy roads, and no screens to watch your favorite shows. It was a time when the world was very young. The hills were green and fresh, the rivers flowed with sparkling clear water, and the sky seemed bigger and bluer than it does today. People lived in small communities, working the land and building their homes with their own hands. It was a simple life, but it was also a time when things started to go wrong in the hearts of people. The world was beautiful on the outside. Giant trees reached up to the heavens, and colorful flowers dotted the fields like tiny jewels. Animals of all shapes and sizes roamed freely across the plains and through the dense forests. But while the earth itself was full of wonder and beauty, the people living on it were beginning to change. Their hearts were becoming filled with unkind thoughts and selfish desires. They forgot how to be good to one another. They argued and fought, and their actions made the world a sad and noisy place, losing its peaceful harmony day by day. Think about a perfect, beautiful garden. At first, everything is in its right place. The flowers are blooming, the bees are buzzing, and there is a sense of peace. But imagine if someone started throwing stones, pulling up the flowers, and making a mess. Soon, the garden would lose its beauty and become a place of chaos. This is what was happening to the world. People's hurtful words and mean actions were like stones being thrown into that beautiful garden. The goodness that once filled the world was slowly fading away, replaced by shadows of anger and selfishness. This growing darkness was a great sadness. God looked down at the wonderful world he had created and saw that it was no longer the joyful place he had intended it to be. The laughter was gone, replaced by shouts. The kindness was gone, replaced by cruelty. The air, which should have been filled with songs of praise and happiness, was thick with unhappiness and discontent. It was a time of great trouble, a time when something needed to be done to wash away the sadness and start over, to bring back the light that had been lost. In this troubled world, there lived one man who was different from everyone else. His name was Noah. Noah was a good man. He tried his best even when it was hard. While others were busy thinking only of themselves, Noah thought about God and being kind to his family. He lived a quiet life, working hard, raising his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He and his wife taught their children to be honest and caring, to love God, and to respect the beautiful world around them. Noah's heart was full of goodness. Noah stood out like a single bright star in a dark, cloudy sky. When everyone else was making bad choices, Noah chose a different path. He listened for God's voice in quiet moments. He found joy not in arguing or taking things from others, but in simple things, watching the sunset, working with his hands. People around him probably thought he was strange. They might have laughed at him for being so different and for not joining their selfish ways. But Noah didn't let their laughter change him. He knew what was right. His family was his whole world. He loved his wife, who stood by his side. He was very proud of his 3 sons. Together they made a small island of goodness in a sea of trouble. They helped each other, they shared what they had, and they prayed together. Noah taught his sons how to build, how to farm, and how to live with a faithful heart. He showed them that true strength comes from kindness and trusting in God. Because Noah was so good and his heart so pure, God looked at him with great love. In a world so dark and lost, Noah was a single point of light, a glimmer of hope. God saw Noah as a man he could trust, a man who would listen and obey. And so, in this time of great sadness, God decided to speak to Noah. He had a very important, very big, very surprising plan for him. This plan would change Noah's life, his family's life, and the future of the entire world forever. As time went on, the world's problems grew bigger and bigger. The small arguments between people turned into loud, angry fights that never seemed to end. The little seeds of selfishness that had been planted in people's hearts grew into great thorny bushes of greed and cruelty. No one seemed to care about being kind or fair anymore. The world had become a place where the strongest people and the meanest people made the rules, while the gentle people and the good people were left with nothing. Children learned to be unkind by watching their parents. Friends turned against each other over small, unimportant things. Imagine a beautiful song where every instrument plays its part in perfect harmony. That is how the world was meant to be. But now, It was as if every musician was playing a different clashing tune as loudly as they could. The result was not music, but a terrible, jarring noise. God looked down upon the earth and saw that the wickedness of people had become very great. He saw that every thought and every intention of their hearts was only evil all the time. It was now a place of deep sorrow, a masterpiece that had been spoiled and stained by human choice. Seeing the world in such a state brought a great sadness to God's heart. It was like a master potter who had lovingly shaped a beautiful vase only to watch it be smashed into 1,000 pieces. God grieved that he had ever made people to live on the earth. This wasn't an angry thought, but one filled with deep sorrow and disappointment. He had given them a perfect world, the gift of free will, the capacity for great love. Yet they had chosen to fill their lives and their world with so much ugliness and hate. God saw that the world's sickness was too deep to be healed with a simple cure. A difficult decision had to be made, like a gardener who must clear away a hopelessly diseased patch to allow new, healthy life to grow. So God decided that he had to wash the world clean. He would send a great flood and wash away all the wickedness and pain. But even in this moment of great sorrow, God did not want to destroy everything. His heart still held on to a flicker of hope. He looked for someone, just one person who had not forgotten him, one person whose heart was still good and true, who could be the seed for a new beginning. God found Noah. He told Noah about his sadness and his difficult decision. "I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth." But God did not stop there. He immediately followed the terrible news with a message of hope and a set of instructions. "So make yourself an ark of cypress wood," God said. An ark? It was to be a huge boat, bigger than anything anyone had ever seen or even dreamed of. "I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you, Noah, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you." After hearing God's incredible plan, Noah did not hesitate. The very next morning, Noah gathered his 3 sons. With a heavy but determined heart, he explained everything. The very first step, find the right trees. The first swing of the axe into a cypress trunk echoed through the forest. That sound was the beginning, the first act of obedience. As the pile of cypress logs grew into a small mountain, the real construction began. The ark was longer than a football field and as tall as a 4-story building. It was being built on dry land, miles from any ocean, under a clear blue sky. To anyone passing by, it must have looked like the most ridiculous project ever undertaken. "What are you building, Noah?" they would ask. Their curiosity quickly turned to mockery. They laughed at Noah. Noah, being a righteous man, would pause his work and explain, urging them to change their ways and turn back to God. But the people did not listen. "An old man building a giant boat on dry land," they would jeer. Despite the constant ridicule, Noah and his family kept working. The jeers and insults were like a sea of laughter crashing against them, but their faith was the rock that kept them steady. They ignored the laughter and focused on the sound of their own hammers, the sound of obedience, the sound of building their hope for a new world. The years passed slowly. Building the ark was not a project of weeks or months, but decades. The ark grew steadily, level by level, rising higher. There must have been moments of doubt and moments of exhaustion. He might have wondered if he'd heard God correctly, or if the flood would ever truly come. This long, slow process was a profound test of faith, a daily, repetitive decision to keep going. During this time, Noah's family became a self-reliant team, bound by a shared purpose. Finally, after a lifetime of work, the ark was complete. It stood in magnificent, bizarre glory, a masterpiece of faith and obedience, built as God commanded. They had passed the test. With the great ark now finished, a new and even more wondrous phase of God's plan began. God told Noah, "Go into the ark, you and your whole family. Take with you 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal, 1 pair of every kind of unclean animal, and 7 pairs of every kind of bird." From the forests, the jungles, the mountains, the plains, the animals began to come. The trickle became a stream. The stream became a river of living creatures, all making their way peacefully toward Noah and his colossal ark. Majestic lions with flowing manes walked calmly next to gentle lambs. The people from the nearby villages who had laughed for so long now fell silent. They watched with wide, disbelieving eyes. This was something beyond human explanation. Guiding this incredible multitude of creatures into the ark was a monumental task. Noah stood at the great doorway, a gentle guide for the animal kingdom. Noah's wife organized provisions. The sons' wives managed storerooms. Their careful planning was essential for survival. Inside the ark, it was a world of organized chaos, the air filled with the soft cooing of doves, the low rumble of a resting lion. They treated each creature with kindness and respect. As the animals filed in, 2 by 2, a male and its mate, the sheer diversity of God's creation was on full display. It was a living library of creation, a precious cargo to protect. After days of the steady procession, the last of the animals finally boarded the ark. Noah and his family took one last look at the world they had always known. Then Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives stepped out of the old world and into the new world they had built. Suddenly, with a slow, deep groan, the great door of the ark began to move. The Bible tells us that the Lord shut him in. An unseen power swung the enormous pitch-covered door into place, sealing it tightly. That sound was a sound of absolute finality. For 7 days they waited inside the sealed ark. Outside, the sun continued to shine. Look, they might have said, Noah and his zoo are trapped in their wooden box and nothing is happening. They had obeyed completely, and now they sat in the darkness, waiting for the promise to be fulfilled. They waited for the first drop of rain. Then, on the 7th day, it happened. A single soft tap was heard on the roof of the ark, then another, and another. It was a sound they had not heard in a very long time, the sound of rain. At first, it was just a gentle patter. The drops came faster and harder, turning from a downpour into a torrential deluge. But the rain was not the only source of water. The springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. The people who had been laughing just hours before were now running for higher ground. Inside the ark, Noah's family felt a gentle rocking motion, then a lurch, and then a definite lift. The great vessel was now floating. The ark was rising with the water, above the chaos. For 40 days and 40 nights, the water rose so high it covered even the highest mountains. Everything, every trace of the old world was gone. Then, after 40 long days and 40 sleepless nights, it stopped. Life inside the ark settled into a new, strange routine. Every day was a cycle of work and trust. The waters prevailed upon the earth for 150 days. But God remembered Noah and sent a wind to blow across the surface of the earth. Slowly, gradually, the water levels began to drop. Then, after months of floating, they felt a sudden jolt. The ark had come to rest. It had landed on solid ground, settling gently upon the slopes of the mountains of Ararat. After waiting another 40 days, Noah opened the window. He first sent out a raven. The raven returned. A week later, he sent out a dove. So it returned to the ark. Noah waited another 7 days. Once again, he took the dove and released it. As dusk began to fall, the dove returned, and this time it was carrying something in its beak. It was a freshly plucked olive leaf. This small green leaf was a sign of incredible significance. It meant that trees were now growing again. Life had returned to the earth. He waited 1 more week and sent the dove out a final time. On this occasion, the dove did not return. Noah knew what this meant. The bird had found a home. The earth was now ready. Then finally the word came. God spoke to Noah saying, "Come out of the ark." Cautiously, they walked down the ramp, their feet touching dry ground for the first time in over a year. After Noah's family, the animals began to emerge. The creatures scattered across the landscape, free once more to roam the earth. As soon as he was on dry land, Noah's first act was one of gratitude. He gathered stones and built an altar. There he and his family worshipped God, giving thanks for their deliverance. Then God set a magnificent sign in the clouds to seal his covenant. He said, "I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." Whenever the clouds would gather, God said he would look at the rainbow and remember his everlasting promise, a colorful guarantee that light will always follow the storm. The story of Noah is really the beginning of a new chapter for all of humanity. From this one family, all the nations of the world would eventually grow. Noah's greatest legacy, however, is his incredible example of faith. In a world where everyone else had turned away from God, Noah listened. He obeyed without question. The story of Noah and the Ark is more than just an exciting adventure. It is a timeless tale about choices, consequences, and second chances. It teaches us that even in the darkest times, God provides a way to be saved. Ultimately, Noah's Ark is a story of God's unfailing love for creation, a story that encourages us to have the courage to be different, to follow the path of righteousness, and to trust that God's promises are true, even when we are waiting in the dark for the rain to stop.